The baby's cries echoed softly through the living room that morning, sunlight slipping through the blinds, dust dancing in the air. I reached out my arms instinctively. After all, I'd raised children, soothed fevers, sung lullabies in the darkest nights. But before I could even brush his cheek, my daughter snapped, her voice cutting like glass. "Don't touch the baby, you'll infect him with old age." Her words were ice, loud enough that her husband chuckled uncomfortably, trying to play it off, but not loud enough to erase the sting. I froze, my hand mid-air, my eyes stinging with the kind of tears you refuse to let fall in front of those who don't deserve them. She yanked the child closer to her chest, clutching him like I was a disease. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. I swallowed hard, pretending I didn't hear it, pretending the venom didn't cut deeper than any knife. She sat back down on the couch, patting the baby's back, smugness painted across her face. Her husband whispered, "That was harsh," but she brushed him off. "Please," she sneered, "I don't need her old hands all over him. The baby doesn't need whatever she carries." Her friends who had gathered in the room looked at me, some with pity, some with awkward smirks. No one spoke up. No one defended me. I smiled faintly, lowering myself back into the armchair, folding my hands in my lap so tightly that my knuckles ached. I looked at my grandson, tiny and perfect, innocent of the cruelty his mother wielded. He cooed softly, reaching a fist toward me, but my daughter shifted him away, bouncing him as if she was protecting him. The humiliation burned in my chest, heavy, suffocating. The rest of the visit blurred. She handed out slices of cake, poured coffee, played the gracious hostess. I sat there, invisible, listening to her gush about nursery plans, about the christening, about milestones I apparently wasn't fit to be part of. But while they laughed, I memorized every smirk, every word, every cruel glance. I let it etch itself into my bones, because I knew something they didn't. By the time the sun dipped low and the last guests shuffled out, my daughter hadn't realized that her words had planted the seed of her downfall. She hadn't realized that the very woman she dismissed as too old to matter still held the power to shape her child's future. And that in just a few hours she would learn brutally, unexpectedly who the baby's real guardian would be. That night I couldn't sleep. My daughter's words kept replaying in my mind like a needle scratching over the same cruel line. "Don't touch the baby, you'll infect him with old age." I stared at the ceiling, the house quiet, my hands folded against my chest. I had spent decades raising her, sacrificing my youth, my body, my dreams, and yet to her, I was nothing but a disease. The next morning, I woke earlier than everyone else. The house was still, the light of dawn stretching pale across the walls. I went to the kitchen and brewed myself a cup of tea, steam fogging my glasses. My daughter eventually came down, the baby in her arms, her tone clipped. "You're up early, Fossil," she muttered. She kissed her baby's head with exaggerated sweetness, as if to prove something. I smiled faintly. I didn't answer. Instead, I studied the child's face. His little hands curled, his eyes blinking in wonder. Innocent? He wasn't the problem. She was. By mid-morning, relatives arrived for brunch. My daughter's voice filled the house again, commanding attention, dripping arrogance. "Mom keeps trying to touch the baby," she complained loudly to her cousin. "I told her she's too old. Old people carry things. Weakness. We want him strong." Laughter bubbled in the kitchen. My cousin's wife looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. Silence was always safer than siding with me. That's when I felt the resolve harden inside me. I wasn't going to sit quietly anymore, not this time. I excused myself and walked to my room. From a small locked drawer, I pulled out a folder I had been keeping documents I hadn't wanted to use, but that now burned like a weapon in my hands. My late husband and I had been meticulous about guardianship years ago, in case anything happened to her. We had written provisions, quietly updated over the years. My daughter never asked. She assumed she'd always be in control. But the paper said otherwise. The folder contained the signed, notarized guardianship papers naming me not her arrogant husband, but me as the baby's guardian in the event of neglect, unfit parenting, or abandonment. I had updated it with the lawyer just months ago after watching her spiral into vanity and selfishness, and I had quietly collected evidence too. Her drinking, her late nights leaving the baby with strangers, her dismissive, careless words. I slid the folder back into my bag and returned to the living room. She was still talking, laughing about how Mom looks at him like he's a doll she's about to break. Her friends laughed, cruel echoes bouncing off the walls. I sat quietly sipping my tea, memorizing again, because I knew the time to act wasn't far. By the afternoon, she was boasting about her weekend getaway plans, a spa trip, leaving the baby with a sitter. She said it casually, like it was nothing. I caught her husband's uneasy glance. Even he wasn't on board, but he didn't dare speak up. That night, after they'd all gone to bed, I sat by the baby's crib. He reached out a little hand, curling his fingers around mine. My heart swelled and broke at once. I whispered softly, "Don't worry, little one. You'll never be treated like I was today, I promise." And I meant it, because in just a few hours my daughter would learn who held the real power over that baby's future. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the dining room table as my daughter strutted in with the baby on her hip, smug as ever. She was still talking about her weekend spa getaway, bragging to her husband about how she deserved it after carrying the baby for 9 months. She didn't notice the way his jaw tightened, or the way I quietly laid a manila folder on the table. "What's that?" she asked, frowning, setting the baby down in his bouncer. "Something you should have read a long time ago," I said softly, pushing the folder toward her. She flipped it open lazily, her smirk fading as her eyes darted across the words. Her lips parted. "Guardianship?" she muttered, then looked up at me with fire. "What is this supposed to mean?" "It means," I said, keeping my voice steady, "that while you were mocking me, while you were leaving your child with strangers, while you were too busy worrying about appearances, I was ensuring that your son had someone who actually cares for him, someone who won't use him as a prop." Her husband leaned over, snatching the papers, his eyes scanning quickly. He froze. "Evelyn, this is signed, notarized. It's legal." His voice was almost a whisper. She turned crimson. "You can't do this. He's my baby." "Your baby?" I leaned forward, my eyes burning into hers. "A baby you call weak because he's touched by old hands? A baby you hand off so you can sip champagne and pose for pictures? A baby you mock in front of your friends while using his life to elevate yours? You may have given birth to him, but motherhood is more than biology. Motherhood is sacrifice, something you've forgotten." Her voice cracked. "This isn't fair." "Fair?" I hissed. "Fair was me raising you when I had nothing, me working double shifts while you slept soundly, me protecting you when no one else would. And how did you repay me? By calling me a disease in front of everyone, by acting as if my years of love made me unfit to touch your child." She stood abruptly, her chair screeching against the tile. "You can't take him from me! You wouldn't dare!" But her husband didn't move. He just kept staring at the papers, then at me. His silence was louder than her screams. By that afternoon, when the lawyer came to confirm everything, the truth sank in. My daughter had mocked me as old, useless, a fossil. But now, her face went pale as she realized the weight of her arrogance. Her friends who had once laughed with her heard the whispers, saw the documents, and turned away. That evening, I rocked the baby in my arms, his tiny breath warm against my neck. My daughter stood in the doorway, tears streaking her cheeks, whispering, "Please, Mom, don't do this." But it was too late. The one she mocked for being too old to matter now held the future of the only person who truly mattered, her child. She had said my touch would infect him with old age. Hours later, she learned instead who the baby's guardian really was. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.